Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another highly anticipated deep dive edition of our sports news and analysis program. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because the basketball world, specifically the passionately beating heart of Philippine basketball, is currently experiencing a seismic event. We are not just talking about a simple game of hoops today. We're talking about history being written before our very eyes, a masterclass in resilience, a generational changing of the guard. As is so often the case in this beautiful, chaotic sport, a storm of controversy that threatens to overshadow the brilliance on the hardwood. Grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and prepare yourselves for an extensive, exhaustive, and entirely comprehensive breakdown of the news that has completely taken over the timelines, the sports bars, and the living rooms across the nation. The headline that has everyone talking, debating, and arguing today is this: Barangay Ginebra's Justin Brownlee and RJ Barrientos have made absolute history, cementing their names in the annals of the Philippine Basketball Association, while simultaneously, the ever-polarizing, ever-combustible Calvin Abueva has dropped a verbal bombshell, accusing the league's officiating crew of being what he calls a Paldo referee. This is not a drill. Folks, this is the kind of narrative collision that makes sports the ultimate reality television. On one side of the spectrum, we have the pure, unadulterated poetry of a basketball comeback, orchestrated by a beloved veteran and a fiery rookie. On the exact opposite side of the spectrum, we have the gritty, controversial, and deeply cynical accusation that strikes at the very integrity of the game itself. To truly understand the magnitude of what transpired, we cannot simply look at the box score. We have to understand the fabric of the PBA, the cultural weight of the Barangay Ginebra San Miguel franchise, and the psychological warfare that defines the men who play within its ranks. Let us first set the stage by talking about what basketball means in this part of the world. It is not just a pastime. It is a religion. The painted lines on the concrete courts in barangays, the echo of a dribbling ball in the humid evening air, the collective gas of crowd inside a packed coliseum. These are the rhythms of nation. And at the absolute center of this national obsession sits Barangay Ginebra. For decades, this franchise has carried the hopes, the dreams, and the anxieties of the working class. The never say die spirit, famously birthed by the living legend Robert Jaworski, is not just a marketing slogan. It is a philosophy. It is an expectation. When you put on that jersey, you are no longer just playing for your paycheck. You are playing for the millions of fans who see their own daily struggles reflected in your effort on the court. You are expected to dive for loose balls, to play through pain, and absolutely never, ever surrender, no matter how insurmountable the odds may seem. Enter Justin Brownlee. When we talk about history, we have to talk about the legacy of this man. He arrived in the Philippines years ago, initially as a replacement import, a temporary fix for a team looking for a spark. What he became is nothing short of a mythological figure. Justin Brownlee did not just adapt the Philippine brand of basketball. He absorbed it, elevated it, and made it his own. He hit the shot that ended an 8-year championship drought. He became a naturalized citizen. He carried the national team on his shoulders. But in sports, time is the ultimate undefeated opponent. As the years have rolled on, whispers have occasionally surfaced. Is he getting too old? Has he lost a step? Can he still carry the team when the lights are brightest? Every time those whispers begin to grow into a murmur, Justin Brownlee responds not with words, but with spectacular, undeniable performances. He is a player who possesses a basketball IQ that borders on clairvoyant, a silky smooth jumper that seems to defy the laws of physics, and a heart that pumps pure ice in the closing moments of a tight game. But even a hero of Brownlee's stature cannot win a war alone. The modern PBA is faster, more athletic, and more demanding than ever before. Ginebra needed an infusion of youth, a jolt of unpredictable energy, a player who could not only share the scoring burden, but also carry the torch into the future. That brings us to the second half of our historic duo, RJ Barrientos. The Barrientos name is royalty in Philippine basketball, synonymous with elite point guard play, dazzling court vision, and an unmatched swagger. When RJ entered professional ranks, after stints overseas that tested his mettle and refined his skills, the expectations were astronomically high. Playing for Ginebra is a crucible. It can forge you into a diamond, or it can crush you under the immense pressure of millions of scrutinizing eyes. What we are witnessing right now is RJ Abarianos not just surviving the crucible, but thriving in it. He plays with a fearless audacity that is breathtaking to behold. He takes shots that make coaches pull their hair out, only to drain them and send the crowd into absolute pandemonium. When you pair the season-calculating, championship-tested brilliance of Justin Brownlee with the raw, explosive, audacious talent of RJ Abarianos, you create a perfect storm. And that storm made landfall recently in a way that shattered records and expectations. They engineered a performance that will be talked about in barbershops and online forums for years to come. They embodied the never say die mantra in its purest, most exhilarating form. They dragged their team from the depths of deficit and willed them to victory, combining for a point total and offensive synergy that is rarely seen in the highly physical, defense-oriented landscape of the PBA Commissioner's Cup. This was not just a win, it was a statement. It was Brownlee reminding the league that he is still the king, and it was Abarianos officially announcing his arrival as the Crown Prince. However, as we bask in the glow of this historic achievement, we must immediately pivot to the dark clouds gathering on the horizon. Sports are a dichotomy of triumph and grievance, and nothing exemplifies grievance quite like the post-game comments of Calvin Abueva. Let's take a very deep, very critical look at Calvin, the Beast, Abueva. If Justin Brownlee is a hero of our narrative, Calvin Abueva is the ultimate anti-hero. He is a player built on pure, unadulterated chaos. He is a master of psychological warfare, a player who thrives on disruption, physical intimidation, and getting under the skin of his opponents, the opposing fans, and quite frequently, the referees. Abueva's career is a tapestry of brilliant hustle plays, crucial rebounds, and highly controversial moments. He plays with an edge that constantly flirts with the line of what is acceptable, and he often crosses it. But recently, the controversy has moved from the physical to the verbal. In the wake of a highly contentious game, amidst the swirling emotions and the bitter taste of defeat, Calvin Abueva made a statement that has sent shockwaves to the league office and fan base. He utilized the term Paldo referee. For those who might not be intimately familiar with local street slang, Paldo translates roughly to being rich, having a fat wallet, or, in a more sinister context, being bought off or heavily compensated. By calling the officials Paldo referees, Abueva is not just criticizing a missed foul call or a blown out-of-bounds possession. He is directly challenging the fundamental integrity of the officials. He is vocalizing the darkest, most cynical thoughts of every frustrated sports fan and putting it on the public record. This accusation is a grenade tossed into the middle of the PBA season. The relationship between players, coaches, and referees is always inherently adversarial. Officiating a professional basketball game is an incredibly difficult task. The athletes are massive, they move at blinding speeds, and the decisions have to be made in a fraction of a second. Mistakes are inevitable. However, there's a massive chasm between acknowledging human error and accusing an official of premeditated bias or corruption. When a player of Abueva's profile, someone with a massive following and a megaphone amplified by social media, makes a claim like this, it forces a league into a very uncomfortable corner. We are looking at two massive, intersecting storylines that define the modern sports experience. We have the transcendent beauty of the game itself, executed at the highest level by Brownlee and Abarianos, showcasing the pinnacle of athletic achievement and mental fortitude. And we have the ugly, messy, deeply human drama of the business of sports, highlighted by Abueva's blistering accusations against the referees. How do these two realities coexist? How does a league celebrate its brightest stars while simultaneously managing a crisis of confidence in its officiating? What are the implications for Ginebra moving forward as they ride this wave of historic momentum? And what kind of disciplinary hammer is about to fall on Calvin Abueva for daring to speak the unspoken fears of the cynical fan? This is not a topic that can be covered in a quick 2-minute soundbite. This requires forensic examination of the facts, the context, and the history. We're going to break down the mechanics of that historic Ginebra performance, analyzing exactly how Brownlee and Abarianos systematically dismantled their opponents. We're going to look at the defensive schemes they faced, the adjustments they made, and the sheer willpower it took to pull off that victory. Then, we are going to dive headfirst into the Calvin Abueva situation. We will examine the specific plays that led to his outburst, the history of refereeing controversies in the PBA, and the massive cultural shift in how fans and players interact with the authorities of the game. We are leaving absolutely no stone unturned today. We are going deep into the excess and OS, the psychology and the drama. So stay absolutely locked in, because we are just getting started on this massive exploration of triumph, history, and controversy in the PBA. Let us transition into the core of our analysis, starting with the absolute masterpiece painted on the canvas of the hardwood by Ginebra. To fully appreciate the history made by Justin Brownlee and RJ Barrientos, we have to look at the context of the PBA Season 50 Commissioner's Cup. This is a brutal conference. Teams are reinforced by massive, highly skilled imports. The schedules are grueling, and the margin for error is razor thin. Ginebra came into their matchup against Converge with an immense amount of pressure. They had suffered a heartbreaking loss previously, a game where despite an absolute scoring explosion from Brownlee, they fell short. The narrative was teetering. The critics were sharpening their knives. Was the team too reliant on their veteran import? Was the supporting cast doing enough? The game against the Converge Fiberzers started in a way that would make any Ginebra fan incredibly nervous. Converge, a young, hungry team looking to make a name for themselves, came out firing. They executed their game plan perfectly in the first half, building a lead and putting the legendary Ginebra defense on its heels. They capitalized on turnovers. They hit their outside shots, and they seemed to have the answer for everything the Gin Kings threw at them. Entering the second half, the atmosphere was tense. Ginebra was trailing by a significant margin. This is the exact moment where average teams fold. This is where fatigue sets in, the frustration mounts, and the game slips away. But as we established earlier, Ginebra is not an average team, and they are built on a foundation of the never say die ethos. Head coach Tim Cohn, the winningest coach in PBA history, a master tactician who understands the ebb and flow of a basketball game better than anyone else, made his adjustments. But tactics only take you so far. You need players to execute them with absolute conviction. And that is exactly what happened. The third quarter began, and the dynamic completely shifted. Justin Brownlee, who had been relatively quiet, suddenly flipped a switch. It is a terrifying thing for an opposing team to witness. You can see it in his eyes, the subtle change in his body language. He began to demand the ball. He started taking those incredibly difficult, highly contested mid-range fadeaways that had become his signature, and he started sinking them one after another. He bullied his way into the paint, drawing fouls, grabbing rebounds, and asserting his absolute dominance over the game. He scored 22 points in the second half alone, finishing with a staggering 33 points and 10 rebounds. It was a vintage performance, a reminder of why he is considered arguably the greatest import in the history of the league. But as brilliant as Brownlee was, the truly historic nature of this game came from the player running alongside him, RJ Barrientos. When you are a rookie playing next to a legend, the natural instinct is to defer, to get out of the way, and let the veteran do his thing. RJ Barrientos does not have that instinct. He possesses a supreme, unshakable confidence. As Converge focused their defensive attention on trying to stop the Brownlee avalanche, Barrientos found his openings, and he exploited them with ruthless efficiency. He was absolute dynamite from the perimeter. He hit step-back three-pointers that demoralized the defense. He orchestrated the pick and roll with the poise of a 10-year veteran, finding his teammates for easy baskets or create his own shot when the clock was winding down. Barrientos finished the night with 32 points. Let that sink in for a moment. A rookie, in a highly pressurized, must-win game for the most scrutinized franchise in the country, dropped 32 points while sharing the floor with an import who scored 33. They combined for 65 points. They hit critical, game-tying, and game-winning shots. They completely dismantled the Converge defense in the fourth quarter. It was a masterclass in offensive synergy. The old guard and the new blood working in perfect, devastating harmony. The sheer statistical improbability of a rookie and a veteran import both exploding for 30-plus points in a comeback victory of this magnitude is exactly why this performance is being labeled as historic. It signifies a passing of the torch that isn't really a passing at all. It's a sharing of a flame. It proves that Ginebra has found the perfect running mate for Brownlee, a player who can extend a veteran's career by taking off the offensive pressure, while simultaneously establishing himself as the future face of the franchise. Now, Let us drastically shift our focus from the pinnacle of basketball execution to the murky, controversial depths of league politics and refereeing. While Ginebra fans were celebrating in the streets, a completely different firestorm was brewing involving Calvin Abueva. Let us dissect the Paldo referee comment. To understand the gravity of this, we have to look at the ecosystem of professional sports. The referees are the arbiters of truth on the court. Their authority must be absolute, or the entire structure of the game collapses into anarchy. Players will argue, coaches will yell, fans will boo. That is the natural friction of the sport. But there is an unwritten rule, a red line that you generally do not cross in public. You do not accuse the officials of corruption. Calvin Abueva crossed that line, sprinted past it, and set it on fire. By using the word Paldo, he is implying that the referees are not just incompetent, but that they are financially motivated to influence the outcome of the game. This is the ultimate taboo. Why did he say it? We have to analyze the psychology of a player like Abueva. He plays a highly physical, contact-heavy style of basketball. He is constantly in the paint, fighting for rebounds, throwing his body around. Because of his reputation, he often feels, perhaps justifiably in his own mind, that he is officiated differently than other players. He feels that he is penalized for his reputation rather than his actual actions, while his opponents are allowed to get away with murder against him. When you combine that deep-seated feeling of persecution with the immense adrenaline and emotional volatility of a high-stakes PBA game, you get a powder keg. A missed call, a perceived injustice in the fourth quarter, and the keg explodes. But the aftermath of this explosion is incredibly complex. The PBA, as an institution, cannot simply ignore this. If they allow players to publicly accuse their officials of bribery without severe repercussions, they lose all credibility. The integrity of the league is its most valuable asset. If the fans believe the games are rigged, they stop watching, the sponsors pull out, and the league dies. Therefore, the league office is forced to drop the hammer. We are looking at massive fines, potential suspensions, and a very public rebuke of Abueva's comments. But here's the fascinating, deeply uncomfortable twist. A significant portion of the fan base completely agrees with him. In the age of social media, where every single play is recorded, slowed down, zoomed in, and analyzed from 10 different angles by thousands of armchair experts, the referees are under a microscope like never before. Every missed call is instantly clipped and circulated, accompanied by accusations of bias. The Paldo referee narrative is not something Abueva invented. It is a sentiment that has been simmering in the comment sections and forums for years. Abueva simply took the microphone and said it out loud. This creates a massive headache for the league. On one hand, they must punish Abueva to protect their officials and maintain order. On the other hand, heavy-handed punishment will be viewed by a cynical public as the league trying to silence a whistleblower, confirming their worst suspicions. It is a no-win situation. The league has to find a way to improve the standard of officiating, increase transparency in how calls are reviewed, and somehow rebuild the trust between the fans, the players, and the men blowing the whistles. The contrast between these two massive news stories is jarring, but perfectly encapsulates the reality of professional basketball in the Philippines. You have the absolute transcendent high of watching Justin Brownlee and R.J. Abariano's orchestrated comeback for the ages, a display of skill, teamwork, and heart that reminds you exactly why you fell in love with the sport in the first place. And simultaneously, you have the bitter, controversial reality of Calvin Abueva's accusations, a stark reminder of the human flaws, the institutional pressures, and the intense paranoia that constantly surround the game. One story represents the absolute best of the PBA. The other highlights its most persistent, agonizing flaws. We must also consider the ripple effects of both events. For Ginebra, this historic performance is a massive confidence booster. It proves that their formula works. It proves that Barrientos is the real deal, a superstar in the making who can handle the brightest lights. It sends a message to the rest of the league that the Gin Kings are not just relying on past glory. They are actively building a terrifying new dynamic. The rest of the league now has to figure out how to defend a team that has a primed, confident R.J. Abarianos operating on the perimeter, while Justin Brownlee operates wherever he pleases. For Calvin Abueva and the broader context of league officiating, the ripple effects are much darker. Every single call in the upcoming games will be heavily scrutinized. If a referee makes a controversial call in a tight game, the crowd will instantly scream Paldo. The officials will be operating under an unimaginable level of pressure, knowing that one mistake could spark another viral outrage. The league will be forced to be defensive, constantly justifying their decisions and try and put out fires. The Paldo referee comment is a bell that cannot be unrung. It has changed the vocabulary of the season, injecting a heavy dose of suspicion into every single possession. As analysts, our job is to observe both the light and the shadow. We marvel at the brilliance of the athletes, but we cannot ignore the structural controversies that threaten the sport. The beauty of the Ginebra comeback does not erase the ugliness of the refereeing controversy, and the controversy does not diminish the historic achievement of Brownlee and of Barrientos. They exist simultaneously, creating a rich, complex, and utterly exhausting narrative landscape that keeps us endlessly fascinated. The court is a stage, and right now, the actors are delivering the performances of a lifetime, for better and for worse. As we begin to wrap up this incredibly extensive, deep dive analysis into the whirlwind of events that have recently defined the Philippine Basketball Association, we must take a step back and look at the broader tapestry of what this all means for the future of the sport, the league, and most importantly, the fans. We have spent a significant amount of time today unpacking the sheer, historic brilliance of the Justin Brownlee and R.J. Barrientos connection. We have dissected the mechanics of their jaw-dropping performance, the way their diverse skill sets perfectly complement one another, and what this means for the championship aspirations of the beloved Barangay Ginebra franchise. We have also waded into the deep, turbulent, and controversial waters of Calvin Abueva's explosive Paldo referee accusations, analyzing the psychology behind the outburst, the severe implications for the league's integrity, and the massive cultural divide it represents between the fans and the officiating establishment. What we are left with is a profound realization of just how vital, how vibrant, and how incredibly emotional this sport is to the Filipino people. Basketball here is not a casual viewing experience. It is a deeply personal, highly invested journey. When Ginebra wins in the spectacular, heart-stopping fashion that they did, it elevates the mood of the entire nation. It provides a source of immense joy, a narrative of triumph over adversity that resonates far beyond the four corners of the basketball court. The emergence of R.J. Barrientos as a legitimate, game-changing superstar alongside the enduring greatness of Justin Brownlee is the kind of storyline that scriptwriters dream of. It bridges the gap between generations. It gives the older fans a familiar comfort of Brownlee's heroics, while giving the younger generation a fresh, audacious, highly skilled local talent to idolize. This duo is not just winning games. They are securing the future of the franchise and ensuring that the never-say-die spirit will continue to burn brightly for years to come. Conversely, the Calvin Abueva situation serves as a stark, necessary reminder that the sport is fundamentally a human endeavor, fraught with error, passion, and immense frustration. The Paldo referee controversy is a wound that has been ripped open for all to see. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the immense pressure placed on the officials, the deeply ingrained cynicism of the modern sports fan, and the fine line between passionate competition and destructive behavior. The league's response to this crisis will be a defining moment for the PBA Season 50 Commissioners' Cup. How they discipline Abueva, how they address the concerns of fans, and how they protect the integrity of the referees will dictate the atmosphere for the remainder of the year. If handled poorly, this controversy could cast a long, dark shadow over playoffs. If handled with transparency and firmness, it could serve as a catalyst for much-needed dialogue and reform regarding how games are officiated and how grievances are handled. But despite the controversies, despite the endless debates and the occasional ugliness, the overarching truth remains. There's absolutely nothing quite like PBA basketball. The drama, the storylines, the sheer passion of the crowds. It is a unique, irreplaceable cultural phenomenon. We watch because we want to see history made, just as Brownlee and Barrientos made it. We watch because we are drawn to the fiery, unpredictable nature of players like Abueva. We watch because, in the end, we care deeply about the outcome. Now, this is the part where the conversation truly begins, and it involves all of you. I have laid out the facts, the context, and the analysis, but a deep dive is never truly complete without the voice of the community. I need to hear from you. The comment section below is your arena, and I want to see a passionate, respectful, and detailed debate. First, I want to hear your thoughts on the Barongi Ginebra masterpiece. Are we looking at the most dangerous duo in the PBA right now? Did you expect RJ Barrientos to adapt this quickly and become this dominant in his rookie season? Or did his performance completely catch you off guard? And regarding Justin Brownlee at this point in his career, after everything is accomplished, where does this recent performance rank in his legendary catalog? Is he definitively the greatest import to ever grace the Philippine hardwood? I want to read your tactical breakdowns, your emotional reactions, and your predictions for how far this Ginebra team can actually go in the Commissioner's Cup. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, we need to address the elephant in the room. I want your unfiltered, honest opinions on the Calvin Abueva Paldo referee controversy. Do you believe that his suspension or fine is justified, or do you think he was merely voicing frustrations that every fan secretly harbors? Is the standard of officiating in the PBA currently at an acceptable level, or is there a genuine need for a massive overhaul in how referees are trained, evaluated, and held accountable? How much of this controversy is driven by the reality on the court, and how much of it is amplified by the echo chamber of social media? This is a highly sensitive topic, but it is crucial that we discuss it openly. Please make sure to like this video if you appreciate the extensive breakdown and the deep historical context provided today. The algorithm thrives on your engagement, and every single like helps push this detailed sports journalism to a wider audience who craves more than just a quick highlight reel. If you have not already, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We are committed to bringing you the most comprehensive, professional, and engaging basketball analysis on this platform. We don't just tell you the score, we explain the why, the how, and the what next. As we look ahead to the next slate of games, the narratives are set. The targets are on the backs of Ginebra, the magnifying glass is firmly fixed on referees, and the entire league is on notice. We will be right here, analyzing every single possession, every controversial call, and every historic milestone. Thank you so much for investing your time with us today, for bringing your passion to the channel, and for being the absolute best sports community on the internet.